Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimaloe in Abuja. Tonight our attention is on issues relating to power sector, the welfare of Nigerians, and issues relating also to the tariff and some of what the federal government is imposing or introducing. And the president of the NLC is my guest tonight on the program. But before we get started with our conversation, let me tell you that President Bola Tinubu says enhancing the welfare of officers and men of the Nigerian Armed Forces remains paramount to his administration. President Tinubu spoke at a groundbreaking ceremony of a new defense complex at the inauguration of an army barracks named after him in Abuja earlier today. The president expressed his gratitude to members of the armed forces, lauding their efforts under the leadership of the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa. The ceremony marks the start of a construction project and the foundation of a renewed commitment to the military and values that being held dear as a democracy. And he says it's a new chapter in our nation's commitment to ensuring the safety and security of our people. And the president said, as he, the commander-in-chief, is pledging to support our troops and their families. Take a listen to the president.
Men and women of armed forces, I stand here to say thank you. Thank you for the improvement we have seen and the security, effectiveness, and the danger you faced most of the time. I follow your news regularly, and I appreciate what you are doing. I salute you, and I'm ready to back you. You never lost any battle. This one, you will win and win again. A well-equipped and truly professional military that embodies our nation's pride. In this regard, I have authorized measures to enhance our operational effectiveness, including procuring critical equipment.
That's President Bola Tinubu earlier today at the groundbreaking ceremony of the Defense Headquarters here in Abuja. So we'll take your political roundup stories so that you can be up to date with some of the stories we're following for you.
The federal government has read the Riot Act to the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board (JAMB) and the National Examination Council (NECO) over cases of examination malpractices. Addressing the registrars of the examination bodies in Abuja, the Minister of Education, Mr. Tunji Alausa, says cases of leakages of examination questions is hurting the nation's education sector. The minister explains that the federal government is determined to improve the nation's education sector and will not tolerate cases of examination malpractices of any form.
I'm going to tell you straight, we have to be true. I know cameras, we have several cameras here, but let's wash our dirty laundry in the public. That's how we can improve ourselves. There's nothing to hide. This Ministry of Education, the President has a clear mandate. We have to provide high qualitative education to our citizens.
And the People's Democratic Party and its governorship candidate, Mr. Asue Ighodalo, has called more witnesses at the ongoing Edo Election Petition Tribunal. However, the council to the respondents opposed the admission of some of the documents tendered as evidence. Speaking to Channels Television, the legal advisor to the All Progressives Congress in Edo State, Mr. Stephen Okoko, explained that the witnesses submitted certified true copies obtained from INEC, which was not part of their written deposition on oath. And some members of the National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party are throwing their weight behind the recent court ruling that nullified the party's congresses in Rivers State. The NWC members made their position known during a visit to Governor Simnala Yufubara at the Government House in Port Harcourt. And the Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pate, has called on resident doctors in the Federal Capital Territory and across the country to consider and reflect on the consequences of embarking on strike. Professor Pate made the call in an interview with journalists on the sideline of the ongoing World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. According to him, the current administration is not handling lightly the welfare of health workers in the country. And Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, is advocating the need for Nigerian youth to be empowered to enable them achieve their full potential. Speaking in Abuja at the commissioning of the National Youth Service Corps Digital Museum of Dynamic History, Mrs. Tinubu says the resilient spirit of Nigerian youth is admired all over the world. The First Lady explains that the National Youth Service Corps remains a veritable platform that integrates national unity in addition to promoting youth inclusiveness.
There you have it. You've been served with your political roundup story. So there is a report that the Vice President, Kashim Shatima, is discussing with some world leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where he continues to push for investment for Nigeria. Today, he's particularly speaking about the youth, and he's emphasizing that armed conflict is really posing a grave danger to the future of the continent, the region, and the world at large. It was part of a panel session at the World Economic Forum. I'd like you to listen where the Vice President, Kashim Shatima, was speaking on the need to empower the youth and to safeguard and protect the youth, especially in the face of the armed conflict that we're seeing in many parts of the world. Take a listen to Senator Kashim Shatima.
We can find solutions.
There seems to be some glitches there. Well, we'll bring you the soundbite from the Vice President much later. Now, let's get to our conversation for tonight. The President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaero, has been speaking about the federal government's proposal to allocate a staggering 8 billion naira for sensitization on electricity bill payment. He has described the move as wasteful, insensitive, and an outright mockery of Nigerians' struggles. In a press release signed by the NLC president, he says that the Congress decried the state of the nation's power sector and the perceived incompetence of its leadership. And according to Comrade Ajaero, he says the power sector is at the brink of collapse and plagued by incessant greed failures and financial mismanagement and a glaring lack of accountability. Tonight, Comrade Joe Ajaero is live for us on the program. Comrade, it's good to see you. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Let's begin the conversation around what really was the highlight of your press statement, and that's about the sensitization of the payment of electricity bill. And there are those who believe that a lot of Nigerians don't take seriously or don't have the culture of wanting to pay electricity bill. Perhaps the reason why the Minister of Power says, look, there is a need for the sensitization of Nigerians in paying electricity bill. But that did not come down well with you. What is your appraisal of, on one hand, the amount I was budgeted about and for it, and on the other hand, the concept of sensitizing Nigerians on the need to pay electricity bills?
Well, I think the It's a matter of wrong priority. At this stage, in energy generation, transmission, and distribution, I don't think our problem is to go and sensitize Nigerians to pay bills. Electricity generation in Nigeria is almost over 100 years. And Nigerians, at one stage or the other, pay their bills. Some don't pay for obvious reasons. Some may not have money and they say they don't pay, but the bills are there. Some have money and the services they are receiving is not encouraging. And then the more you increase equally tariff on it, it equally makes it difficult for people to pay. So there is no amount of sensitization that will make people to pay what they don't have. That is one. But there is hardly any Nigerian who doesn't know that when you use a certain kilowatts of electricity, you have to pay. But is that the issue? Because part of the responsibilities of the Minister of Power and the NEC is to make sure that every house in the country is metered. Now, in this modern day and age where you have prepaid meters, if you don't buy token, you will not have supply. So what is the sensitization all about? Because if you don't buy, you will not have supply. And it goes that way. Now, what is the need for suddenly in 2025 budget for us now to make provision to sensitize people to pay bill to the discos owned by private individuals? And you are putting into a federal budget for us to sensitize people, in a sector that is privatized, that is owned by individuals. You are not even talking of a sector that is totally owned by government. And those are the issues, those are the questions that are coming up. What is the role of a minister in a privatized sector? Those questions are clear. And if you go to the 2023 Electricity Act, Section 5(1)(a)(b) to C, would state clearly the roles of a minister of power, in this sector. The same thing with that of the Regulatory Commission in Section, 33 and 34. Clearly, and that they should concern themselves to these areas. And then if you take it further, the TCN of Nigeria, where we have these constant grid collapses, already as of today, they are owing contractors who are giving them equipment over 200 billion. Now, if you are trying to relieve the TCN, is it the 8 billion for sensitization of these costs? So all these things are just, a wrong priority coming at the wrong time, and that shouldn't be allowed. Every disco in this country, they have their public affairs departments, and they consult. They meet with communities, and they sensitize them even before they even present bills. They move their vehicles into the communities and talk to people who are coming to disconnection. They say you pay. So why is the ministry trying to duplicate this function? Of what use?
So, when we wonder that the allocation, the proposed allocation of 8 billion naira for sensitization on electricity bill payment, and now he's gotten a lot of a widespread criticism over that. But again, how does the NLC view this expenditure? Do you think it should be reduced or it should be totally taken out?
Yeah, if you watch a year immediately after privatization, government gradually pulled out from budgetary allocation to the power sector. The transmission company of Nigeria, is a market participant. The generating companies collect from the market. The distribution companies, the same thing. And then there's the role of embed in all this. These are a kind of self-sustaining, sectors, subsectors within the power sector. Now, at what point after privatizing is government now funding the activities of the power sector? Because you at one time you say government has no business in business, and at another time government now has business in an individual's business. Now we have to balance this. It's not the cost. Even if it is 1 billion, I will still say what I'm saying today, that it is a wrong priority. You don't just go and take the government money, from federal budget to fund Ajaero Nigeria Limited, to fund Nigeria Limited. That's not the essence, because the business is self-sustaining, and that was the reason they were giving us in all this high tariff. Each time they increase tariff, You increase tariff, you still take from the budgetary allocation to sustain other people's business. I think it's not even just whether it is 1 billion or 8 billion. It is a wrong concept. It is a wrong idea. That money, if the government wants to improve the power sector, should be channeled in other areas, not sensitization. Definitely not.
I mean, you look at it, and one of the other things that you also said was the state of the electricity sector in Nigeria. I mean, you are an expert in that area. That is your turf. How would you describe it? Would you say that there's been a progress? You saw the defense of the minister and the budget defense before the National Assembly. Do you think that some of what is being said and some of the proposition and in that defense of the monies to be spent in the ministry for the year 2025, do you think those defenses or the stance of the minister, the plan and the agenda of this government will really meet the yearnings and the aspiration of Nigerians, knowing full well that lighting up Nigeria and making power electricity work is at the center of our development and industrialization?
Perfect. Most countries that have developed pre-industrialization, power generated, transmitted, and distributed, were basically the responsibility of the state, of the government of such countries. It is a post-industrialization concept on the issue of privatization. However, having privatized and transferred the ownership of this sector to the private sector, government should not be going into this budgetary allocation we are talking about. If Nigerian government is taking back the issue of electricity generation, transmission, and distribution, and then they are making budget proposals to defend it, and then they have plan to go into maybe renewable energy towards lighting up Nigeria. They have plan for building of a power plant. They have plan of extending, transmission lines to some areas, or they want to adopt the mini-grid and off-grid system that was enshrined in the 2023 Electricity Act. Then you will understand that is based on the policy directives of the government and the laws that were made in this regard. But it is not, and I repeat, it is not going to be for sensitization. That is not it. Now, if you look at this issue of sponsoring the bringing money for sensitization, before now, there used to be Niger Dam Authority and Electricity Corporation of Nigeria. Because the Electricity Corporation of Nigeria will just collect the revenue, and they will not send to the Niger Dam Authority. That was what led to the merger of Niger Dam Authority and the Electricity Corporation of Nigeria to be NEPA before this transition to PSCN, and we moved to where we are. Now we have gone back to that. It is the distribution companies that are collecting revenue. And I'm saying it here live, that even the distribution companies are not paying for the power they collected from the transmission companies of Nigeria. And as of today, the distribution companies of Nigeria put together are owing the transmission company of Nigeria over 400 billion. And the transmission company of Nigeria and the NEC are not ensuring that there's bank guarantee at the disco, so that when they don't pay, you know where to recover it. So the NEC is not doing their job. The ministry is not doing their oversight function. And if they do this, the system will work and the money will be generated. Power has been generated, sold, and people are not paying for the power. The distribution companies are not paying for the power. And instead of you to, based on the law, to tell them that as market participants, any power will to them that they pay for it. You now want to go to Nigerians, and they need to pay power. And they need, when the Nigerians equally pay to distribution companies, the generating companies and the transmission companies will not get. So what are we saying, for goodness sake?
So I look at it. I want Nigerians to listen to the Minister of Power, Mr. Adelabu, and one of what is said in his defense is that before the Nigerian lawmakers at the National Assembly a few days ago. Take a listen. I'd like Comrade Joe Ajaero I would like to get your comment on some of the positions of Mr. Adelabu. This is the Minister of Power before the lawmakers a few days ago.
Tariff issues and migration to Band A. With due respect, sir, I want to state authoritatively before this committee that with the benefit of hindsight, for those that are paying the cost-reflected tariff, I can say to the tune of about 90% compliance, a lot of them have confirmed the benefit of being in Band A. It cannot be 100%, we understand, but we are working on the remaining 10 or 15%. The majority have confirmed. So what we are saying is that instead of introducing or increasing the tariff, what we should be doing is to migrate more and more customers to the Band A by ensuring that the infrastructures are perfect.
I'm very sure that you heard him, Comrade. What would be your reaction to the position of the minister in the area of tariff and the migration of a lot of the customers to Band A?
Well, you know, the tariff structuring and design options are clearly defective because the minister, you know, though before him, anyway, in all fairness, in this process, the NAC started before him, you know, is clearly based on what they call cost-reflective tariff. And then some of us insist on service-reflective tariff. Now, if you do it cost-reflective tariff, for the bogus salary you pay somebody somewhere, for the expensive vehicle somebody buy, and whatever lifestyle, you know, you have to defray the costs, and then for him to equally make profit. Now, if it is service reflective tariffs, the service you are giving to me is what I will pay for. And to that extent, you know, if you don't give me meter, if I'm not metered, you can't just wake up one day and say, I have to pay 20,000, I have to pay 30,000. It's not done. If you don't give me supply, there's a consequence to it. Now, the ministry is talking of migrating from Band A to Band B. That's the highest level of 419 one can think of. Who is in Band A and who is in Band B? Is it based on geographical area that you have Band A or Band B? Or is it based on the dictates of the provider that say, oh, you are in Band A, oh, you are in Band B, and some days you not have supply. And they give you the impression that Band A's will get certain number of hours, maybe 18 hours, whatever, and they don't get. And then you pay attention to probably geographical areas where you migrated them to Band A. Therefore, electricity is no longer a social service. Some communities are still off. You know, they are not getting anything. And you don't even know the band where they belong to. And if you check, you know, the calculation, what's the Band A, what is Band B? In countries of the world that are targeting 24/7 power supply, why would somebody be talking of Band A, Band B? How will it happen? So that idea is concocted, you know, to make money unnecessarily and to say people are migrated. You'll be receiving, you'll be paying, and you are getting 6 hours, 7 hours, or 20 hours a day. All of a sudden, they say you're on Band A. What are the conditions to be on Band A? What are the conditions to be on Band B? Why will you discriminate? Why will you give me Band B and give somebody Band A? These are issues. You know, has the minister concerned himself with the electricity assistance funds to the rural communities to bridge the gap between the urban and rural, you know, power supply up to this moment? Is that not part of their job? You know, it is not part of their job to explore the options that are in existence in renewable energy sources in this country. These are the provisions for the act for them. How many of them are working? How many solar plants do we have in the country? What is the, are we still on fossil fuel with all the dangers, on emission? How many new power plants is being constructed, either solar or whatever, in the countries, in some countries? So what is it that we are doing? Those are challenges we are thinking of to make sure that at least Nigeria gets a stable power supply. Not some people pay 1 naira, some people pay 2 naira. Not some people get 5 hours, some people get 10 hours. Is that what happens in an egalitarian and a society that is, supposed to be, people are supposed to be equal? Heck no.
I mean, I'm worried though, because on one hand is whether or not Nigerians get what they pay for. On another hand is the stability and the consistency of the supply. Yes, you get some hours of supply, albeit you pay more, and yet in some places they are in darkness. But what concerns a lot of Nigerians will be how much of the industrial power supply do we get? Because that will help to drive the economic activities in the country. It will help us to produce more. It will help to stabilize our economy because the industry needs to stabilize. Now, the question here, Comrade Ajaero, is that the grid collapsed about 12 times in 2024 alone. In 10 years, it's collapsed more than 100 times. And they've given so many reasons for the grid collapses. Outdated or old infrastructure, attack by vandals and all whatnot. In fact, in some part of Abuja where you see people who are in the seat of power, there were vandalization of power cables leading to the shut out of power supply. I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? Embarrassing enough that Nigerians don't get what they deserve. Embarrassing the fact that you don't even know when next the grid will collapse. How do we resolve these incessant grid collapses in Nigeria, comrade?
Yeah, you have mentioned so many things that contribute to grid collapse. Sabotage, attacking of the systems, obsolete equipment, and all that. Now the question is, the ministry, the regulatory commission, what are they doing, to be proactive, to make sure that these things, will not continue to repeat themselves? Now, you are talking of maybe 8 billion naira to sensitize Nigerians, but the people will use vigilantes up to this moment to release money to pay them. That some of them that check these lines in Benin and some other areas has been a tug of war to pay these vigilantes that check these lines. And we're talking of, who to sensitize and who not to sensitize. The cables that were vandalized up to this moment, if you check, they have not been replaced. Now the Electricity Act of 2023 made provision for local content. As of today, Nigeria should not be importing cable. Go and check. I'm not sure they have replaced those cables they want to import. Now, this is the local content aspect of the reforms in the power sector. As of today, we are not supposed to be, importing meters, prepaid meters. In fact, there are even some Nigerians that are producing it. In India and some other places, you walk into a shop and you buy a meter. So it's not rocket science. No, nobody has developed the local content. Before now, there used to be meter tests, in Kaduna, in Port Harcourt, in Oshodi, where the mechanical meters are produced. Today, that we created a power sector. There's NEMSA and other areas that are produced. How many meters are we producing? Must we go outside to import? If we have a challenge of cable, either vandalized or otherwise, we import. Now, why have the ministry not paid attention to the local content on the facilities we need? So these are some of the challenges that if we don't get them right. Now, even if it is policing the lines, there are modern technologies for you to know when lines are tampered with. And for you to even police them, why are we not putting those ones into use? So on and on, you discover that unless something is done and urgently too, it will be difficult for us to stabilize. He was, in one of his statements, was talking about 5,000 megawatts after how many years? So, and even if he gets 10,000 today or tomorrow, Nigeria is still at the bottom of countries that are suffering from power poverty. How can you have 200 million people, and somebody is selling us 5,000 megawatts? Whereas the indices is maybe 1 million people for 1,000 megawatts. And then we are nowhere, and then we are trying to beat our chest that we have done it. I think we should sit down and work. Look at the local content. Look at where the issue of wires, the issue of meters, all those ones we can do here could be produced. Look at our own local resources. Go to Yola, go to other areas where the heat level is back. Now, get a mixed source of energy. Get the heat, get the solar. Where we have water, we use hydro and other sources. So that's what we should be thinking of this time, and not to be beating our chest that we have done it. We are nowhere in terms of power generation, transmission, and distribution.
Let's take a moment to take a break. But before we go on that break, everyone, this is me trying to test how much of our political history you know. So our Politics Today quiz today is the Aburi Accord, which sought to prevent the Nigerian civil war, was held in which country? Is it Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, or Liberia? What is your answer? Let's test how much you know of Nigeria's political history. We'll be right back, everyone, after this break. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Earlier on in the program, I was telling you about the engagement of the Vice President, Kashim Shatima, where he participated in one of the panel sessions at the World Economic Forum in Davos. The Vice President was making a very strong position about the youth and the issues of the armed conflict. Let me allow you to listen to it.
When you talk about multilateralism, what multilateral institutions, organizations are you looking for to help turn this around?
When it comes to multilateralism, I'm referring to organizations like the United Nations Organization, even the World Economic Forum, and all agencies for the good of humanity should fuse into one and find solutions. But honestly, I am an eternal optimist. But the case in nations like Niger, which even in the best of times, were always facing existential threats, is very, very terrible. But efforts are ongoing through different platforms like the ECOWAS, like the multinational joint task forces, to come up with robust solutions to the challenges facing us. But most importantly, my own perspective is that we should have a holistic approach. Beneath the mayhem of Boko Haram, underneath the nihilism of ISWAP, lies the real cause, which is extreme poverty. Once we adopt a kinetic and non-kinetic solution to the challenges, unless we want to engage in an endless war of attrition, military solution cannot solve our problems. We have to combine it. Gender empowerment initiatives, investments in education, in healthcare, in infrastructure. Once we create hope for the youth, once we create hope for a better tomorrow, this sanity madness will evaporate. Because we are a very young continent. Do you know the average age of the Nigerian nation? It's 16.9.
16, yeah.
So the anticipated demographic bolt, and nations like Nigeria, by 2050, we are supposed to surpass the United States, will be the third most populous nation on earth. Our population will hit 440 million. And this anticipated demographic bulge, we have the window of transforming them into demographic dividends, or there will be the demographic disaster that will consume all of us.
That's Vice President Kashim Shatima in a panel session in Davos, Switzerland. Let's get back to the conversation with Comrade Joe Ajaero. Thank you so much, Comrade, for your time tonight. Now, if there is something that this government needs to do when it comes to power, because it looks like a disease that a lot of past governments in this country have not been able to resolve. And for someone who knows so much and so well of the power sector, how do you think we can resolve, or how do you think, resolving the problem is on one hand, but what concerns a lot of Nigerians will be, can we get 24 hours power supply? Is it possible, or is it an impossibility? Is it that Nigerians cannot get it?
Well, Shehu, let me say this clearly. We have to go back to the drawing board. We have to design a conscious master plan that will solve the problems of this country, especially in terms of power, because no country develops without, first of all, fixing its power infrastructure. Very, very important. Now, the concept of government has no business in business, we have seen the limit of it. We have seen the limit that for about 12 years after privatization, the new investors have not ventured into building of power plants. And if they have not ventured into the area of building of power plants, then there's a problem. As part of our master plan, we should be able to determine how many megawatts that will come into the stream annually. Like the year 2025, we should be talking of commissioning 2-3 power plants and then reinforcing the transmission line that will be able to wheel such power to the distribution points. We should be able to equally reinforce, even if it is the distribution substations and then transformers, to be able to convey it. Now, these are done consciously, not by let there be light. It doesn't happen by magic. Because on a yearly basis, the demand goes high. It has to do with demand and supply chain. Now, if more houses are being constructed, then those houses will be connected. If you have 20 people who need it, who need to charge their phones, who need to plug their television stations, and then the number increases to 40, it needs more power. Now, how do we get that power? If 1 million people were using 4,000 megawatts, the moment 4 million people start to use, that 1,000 megawatts, then they start to ration. Give this person 2 hours, give this person 3 hours. Because we have not planned that in the next 1 year or 2 years, our population will increase, the houses will increase, the gadgets will increase, and we need to plan for them. Now you say, okay, let's leave the private sector to do it. At what return on investment would the private sector build a plant? Have you seen any private sector participant in Nigeria that will build a plant and wait for the next 15 years for him to recover his investment? Those are issues we have to look at and find out the way out.
So, comrade,
as other countries are going green.
Comrade, so do you think that this government is taking the right steps? Are we on the right track in achieving some of these things that you have mentioned?
Well, if you want a straightforward answer, Ajaero, I'm yet to know the power policy of this administration. The policy that is in existence today is a policy of privatization by the PDP government of Jonathan. Now, I was expecting a roadmap or a power policy of this administration so that we can walk it through and see where we are today. And I'm saying this openly because we need to reinforce the power sector. We need to take certain decisions. And that government of Jonathan privatized the power sector. And the memorandum of understanding stipulates that it should be subject to review after about 10 years. 10 years after, nobody has said, oh, wait a minute, can we sit on the table and analyze and do evaluation of how far we have gone Where are we coming from? Where are we now? Do we continue to move through this road? Do we continue to move through this path? Those are issues that we need to do so that we can get it right.
So now, my question now, since you touched on the issue of privatization, a decade after the privatization of the Nigeria's power sector, electricity supply remains unreliable and costly. With the benefit of hindsight, comrade, does the NLC think this privatization was a mistake in the first place?
Well, not just the NLC, but the union I represent, then the Nigeria Union of Electricity Employees, fought to make people see reasons on what was about to happen to Nigeria. And the government of that day mobilized soldiers all over, and they privatized by force at gunpoint. And I remember the last word you used, that Nigerians will speak last. And between that time and now, we knew this system would not work. You are talking of people with, foreign direct investment that it will come into the country. We didn't have it. People with technical competence, we didn't have it. People registered in CAC yesterday and today, you give them power plants. And as of today, people went to Nigerian banks to collect money to buy these utility companies. And when they bought it, it created liquidity problem. The banks started having problem. Almost 70 or 80% of the distribution companies in this country today have been taken over by banks. And I'm saying that banks can't run the power companies in this country. Check them one after the other because they are owing these banks and the banks took over. So are we going to keep quiet and be watching and allow banks to run electricity companies, to run an engineering company like this? Are we not supposed to sit down and find out what is happening? Somebody is owing you and you have seized the property. Do you have the competence to run it? What is happening? I think we have to look at all these policies and put them together and move on as a nation.
There are a lot of unanswered questions. There are cases in court about the Nigerian power sector, the money spent, a blame game here and there. If you were to resolve these issues, we to take back some of these privatized, because there are those privatization that were fraudulent in the first place. And you look at how it went about, it looked like a racket between some oligarch, and you wonder what exactly our nation has been dragged into. If you have your way, comrade, in all of this, you've asked that, where the law says it, that after 10 years there needs to be a review. But if there's something that needs to be done in that area, in terms of the ownership and the running of some of these privatized entities, what would that be?
Well, I think what will happen is that I will still recommend conversation. Come to the table and discuss. Because if somebody has bought it and maybe the banks gave the person loan, the banks have taken over, we should discuss on how best to move forward. But what you are seeing in one or two of them that were not even taken over by banks are thinking of selling the companies. Now, even before the review. And that is a part of the problem you have when you have regulatory capture. If the Electricity Regulatory Commission, is standing up to its responsibility, by now, it should have called for all stakeholders, interested Nigerians and experts, to have a second look at it and to see how far we have gone on this matter. So that at the end of the day, it will not be a case of just somebody bought a company and you just take it over from him. We have to converse and everybody will see, where we got it right and where we are moving to the next day. But generally speaking, I will tell you that we can't develop technologically, and industrially at this pace we are moving. We need to sit down and talk.
Let me take you to the Telecom Tariff, and you have spoken about how Nigerians will be burdened about these tariffs and levies. The federal government recently approved the NCC, in that sense, a 50% increase in telecommunication tariffs, a move that will likely burden millions of Nigerians already struggling with rising inflation. And there are those who will say, look, out of almost all the sectors, this sector is one that has had their tariff stagnant for several years, despite economic indices change that we've seen over the past years. What is your view on this proposition of a 50% hike in Telecom's tariff?
Well, this argument of having a constant tariff, we need to find out where this argument is coming from, because by the time the GSM operators came, the first stage, you didn't have even up to 50,000 subscribers. And then we started building it, because you have to look at the quantum, of what is happening. Now, the market was built to be a robust market, to an extent that I'll be surprised if we don't have over 100 million lines. Now, is it based on the core being made all this while? Or is it based on the unit increase per line? That we must increase. And the people who are to pay this tariff, all the indices that they are trying to come up with that is making them to increase, are those people not suffering it? If you are talking of PMS increase, transportation increase, tariff increase in electricity and all that, these people that you are giving 50% now, are they not suffering it? And you talk of even an inflationary rate. Now, it's like the same thing with the power sector. Part of the reasons and indices for you to increase tariff, even in the power sector, is inflation. And now, by the time you increase this tariff, it will create more inflation. And then the same people will go back that there's inflation. Inflation has risen to this level. We need another increase. An increase will continue, whereas your action and the nation are creating the inflation. And then you continue to benefit from, what your inaction created. So I think we should find out if it's somebody that had a market of maybe 50,000 before, suddenly they now have a market of over 100 million, whether the person is suffering or the person is telling you that the market is not robust and they're not making it in the market. So if you go to some traders, it's not about if they sell a product of 100,000 a day, but if they sell a product of 10,000, up to 50 or 60 a day, that's a profit.
So where do we go from here? You have said that you've threatened a boycott of telecom services. How would that work? Would that draw home the point that you are making? What exactly are you asking the federal government to do as alternative to the propositions they are making?
Well, in every tariff modeling, either in the electricity or telecom, you have to take into consideration what we call stakeholder theory. Now, you don't just go into, take it or leave it without consulting the stakeholders, either in the electricity or telecom. In the act that, proposed this regulatory commissions, either NCC or NAC, there's a provision for consultation of all the stakeholders. Now, when you go there, you see that every stakeholder will come up with where it is biting them, where the shoe is pinching them. And not for you to just, like in a dictatorial system, to say, hey, you pay 50%. This 50%, where are we going to get it from? And if we pay this 50%, what is left for us? Now, because some people will ask you that, oh, you people protested on electricity, you people protested on PMS, did you stop them? The issue is that those are sore points, and those sore points are living with us, and they will continue to live with us. Whether we now have all the machinery to hold government hand or to go not to do it, the issue is that these things are biting, and Nigerians are suffering for it, and that's the way it is. On how we approach it and how we go about it, every Nigerian seems to be showing concern on it. The decision we take at the end of the day, with the CSO, with the labor unions, with the workers, will determine to a very large extent. Or it is clear that this thing was done without recourse, to the principle of consultation of stakeholders.
So what are you asking? You have asked for a boycott. The question will be, they have proposed 50%. If they meet again, they may agree and enforce it. The question is, what would Labour be proposing? Is it a halt in that action, or a 20% or a 30%? What exactly is the position of Labour on this? What percentage are you looking at, and what in dimension with these boycotts? What does it mean? What does it interpret to? Is it a kind of protest?
Well, boycott is a protest, clearly protest. However, let me say this. We don't just come, or maybe the NLC president or whatever comes up to say, we are going to do this. Now, who have done what we are supposed to do by rejecting this and stating how it is affecting us negatively? The next line of action is for us to meet, consult all the people concerned, and decide on the appropriate action. And in our statement, we say, including boycott. We stated all those issues, which means it could be all-inclusive, in whatever decision we are going to take. So it's not just for here to say, oh, it's boycott. Even if it's going to be boycott, what is the nature of the boycott? All those things must be discussed within us, the rank and file, and we'll take final decision on this.
So what would you be proposing as an alternative to what the NCC is trying to reach an agreement with the telecoms operator? 50% is what they are proposing.
When you get to the river, you cross it. I can't stay here and say I'm proposing 10%. I'm proposing 5%. Now, by the time we get to the river, and then somebody is saying, this is 50% I'm going to give you. And you say, hey, this 50%, if we pay it, it amounts to maybe 10,000 something or 20,000. If you take it away from my salary, it will not be enough. Then discussion starts. And if it is in a conscious society, every party will see the reason with the other person, and the conversation will be around that. But it's not good for you to take a hard stand, take a strong position before you meet the other party in any negotiation anywhere in the world. You keep your books open and move into it.
On a final note, comrade, I'd like to go back to the issue of the power sector. And you are saying that based on the power grid collapses, you were asking that the power minister should resign. Is that a possible solution, and what would that achieve?
Well, like I said when we were starting, I mentioned some areas that, some sections of the law that provide the jobs of the minister, and that he should stand up and do his job. And that if he is not, it's a conditional, statement. If he is not, or like we said, the officials of the ministry and NEC, if they are not ready to do their job, they should resign. Do you think there's any other option if people are not ready to do their work? I think the most honorable thing to do is to give way for other people to do it. We didn't just come up to say resign. So if you are not ready to do this work to the satisfaction of the country, resign. And we'll stand by it. Anybody that is not ready to do his job should resign for other people to step in and equally try to see how they can perform in such sectors.
Comrade Joe Ajaero is the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Shatima.
Appreciate it. So our quiz tonight, we were asking you earlier on about the issues relating to the Nigerian civil war and the effort in taming what could have caused a major disaster that year. The Aburi Accord, which sought to prevent the Nigerian civil war, was held in which country? And our quiz tonight, the question, the options are there. Nigeria, is it in Ghana or Sierra Leone or Liberia? A lot of people who do not know the answer is Ghana. That was where that meeting held. The Aburi Accord was in Ghana. And that's how we end the show tonight. Many thanks everyone for watching. I'm Shatima. I'll see you next time. God bless Nigeria.